Hello audience, I'm Miscellanea, and I'm here to tell you why I love Free Guy and why it deserves some more respect. The three main reasons Free Guy deserves more respect is because the film is undeniably charming, beautifully subversive, and surprisingly insightful.
But Mitchell, why make a video about a movie that people either think is good or just don't really care about?
Well, here's why. Free Guy, as far as I am concerned, is an underrated gem of a film. Free Guy received an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 94% audience score, got a 7.2 on IMDb. So Mitchell, you may say, well, you have no reason to argue about Free Guy. It already gets good ratings. Why do you care so much? Well, the reason for that is that many critics and average viewers brush it off as just another shallow action comedy with nothing underneath its surface. However, this cannot be farther from the truth. Free Guy has so much hiding underneath its seemingly shallow surface, but many do not see it for what it really is. This common view is evidenced by the many Rotten Tomatoes critic reviews, a few of which I've gathered, both positive and negative here, for your enjoyment and edification. These reviews, although giving the movie a solid score, backhandedly trash the movie for being overly simple, and nothing more than just another summer blockbuster. These two reviews, while mostly positive, also attack Free Guy for being overly simple and even poorly executed. Again, even though people and critics seem to generally revere this movie as good, they hold no respect for it as anything more than a fun, wacky, brain-off movie. These three reviews are outright negative, continuing to frame Free Guy as lame, simple, run-of-the-mill, an industry plant action movie. One reviewer thinks that a movie being under 2 hours is somehow too long. Another reviewer just seems to hate Ryan Reynolds personally, don't know what he did to him. And our third reviewer provides a vague but undeniably clever roast and then refuses to elaborate. But Mitchell, I saw Free Guy a while ago and need a refresher, or forgot about it, or I may have just never even seen it. What's it all about? Well, dear viewer, Free Guy is an action comedy film that was released in theaters in August 2021. The film is now streaming on Disney Plus if you want to rewatch it, or see it for the first time after listening to my spiel. Here's a summary of the film. Pause to read this. I'm not going to read it all out to you myself. It's kind of long. So, congrats! Now you know what Free Guy is, how it's commonly viewed, and generally what happened in the movie. Now, I'm going to spend the rest of this video vehemently defending it, gushing over it, and protesting against the critic reviews and general consensus about the film's depth. Free Guy is undeniably charming, beautifully subversive, and surprisingly insightful. And here's why. The first thing that makes Free Guy so enjoyable is its endlessly quotable script. The jokes hit, and the movie drops so many hard-hitting quotes. The following is an assembled quote montage to display this movie's wonderful writing, both the feely quotes and the just hilarious ones. It's like losing my virginity, but in my mouth. Catchphrase. I can bench press a sentence. I'm pretty lucky. I have naturally dewy skin. Ooh, cappuccino. I enjoy saying that. It's like a waterfall with letters. I may not be real, but for a second there, I felt pretty alive. So what if I'm not real? Even if I'm not, this moment is. Life doesn't have to be something that just happens to us. It's like if Jesus washed my tongue and right before he told my dad he's good enough. It's like my tongue had a baby with a sunrise. And lastly, most importantly, don't have a good day. Have a great day. The dialogue is also very natural. The characters connect and bounce off of each other well in each scene. The movie is awkward when it wants to be and not awkward when it's not supposed to be. Every character is also just kind of hilarious. Guy is so naive for half the movie and everything he says is a banger line. Buddy is constantly hilarious and the perfect dopey best friend. Millie and Keys feel very real and deep with a few really funny moments. Mauser is more awkward and cringe at times, but that's the point. He's supposed to represent that kind of awkward, introverted, weird gamer vibe. And Antoine, well, he probably steals the show every time he's on screen. Played by Taika Waititi, he's absolutely hilarious. Everything just kind of works in Free Guy. If you allow the movie to get away with being a little stupid and ridiculous, which you should. It's a movie about video games set in a video game world. You have to give it a little leeway in terms of being a little ridiculous. And if you do, it all comes together in a really cohesive, hilarious, perfect way. I won't spend too long on this next bit since I'm no expert in cinematography, but Free Guy is just a beautiful and fun movie in terms of visuals. The effects are clean, but they're crazy enough for a video game world. The tender scenes are beautifully shot. The way that framing is used is really pleasing to look at. The action shots are perfectly over the top, like they're just ridiculous enough to make sense in a video game world, but still be like kind of believable or fun to look at. And this movie just really uses visuals to a comedic advantage at every moment that it can. It's also just really well edited. It helps the movie both comedically, in terms of like comedic timing for when jokes land, and also just helping the viewer follow along, because this movie can be kind of confusing and complex in terms of the way its story is layered throughout like different layers of reality through the game and the real world. Free Guy is also an adorable romance movie. The romantic story told in this film is more adorable every single time I watch it. The story is also just pretty original, and it's fascinating to see a movie of this style operate a romance in this kind of way. The chemistry and awkward tension between Keys and Millie and Guy and Millie's avatar, respectively, are both adorable and fun to watch. The film's ending where Guy reveals to Millie that his code is a love letter to her from Keys? What? It's so adorable! This movie manages to make a quote-unquote gamer romance work in a realistic and precious way. Somehow, Joe Carey, despite being as attractive and likable as he is, managed to play the role of awkward guy friend with a crush so well. Ryan Reynolds is also as charming as ever, which probably isn't a surprise, and his naive nature makes his advances towards Millie that much more genuine and enjoyable. Jodie Comer also does a fantastic job as Millie, seriously. Both in-game and real world, her character does a perfect job at recognizing and portraying how weird it is that she's falling in love with Guy, a video game character. But as she discovers Keys made Guy as a way into her heart, her expressions are spot on and beautifully capture her emotions. Everything about Free Guy's love story is just adorable and fun to watch. Perhaps the most lovable thing about Free Guy is how good of a job it does at being a video game movie. Plenty of movies before have either tried to tell a video game story or make up their own video game inspired world. Most of these movies, however, end up just being cringy, lame, unfunny, or bad, with in-your-face references and total ignorance as to what video games actually are and who the people are that play them. I've written a 20-page thesis on video games' impact on society for the better, so this is one portion of the video that I think I can actually call myself an expert on. Free Guy never shoves video game references down your throat, and none of the references overstay their welcome. On screen here are many of these references to video game and other things from general nerd, geek culture shown in Free Guy, from YouTubers to Marvel references to Twitch streamers to Star Wars, and video game references both in the film and in the film's promotional images and posters. Each of these references are only on screen for a very short amount of time, and they make sense to appear in a video game made by a development studio who only cares about money and influence. I mean, the real world has a game like this that does crossovers like this. It's called Fortnite. Also, the gaming references in the dialogue are never cringy either. They're all used accurately and make sense for how video game players actually talk about games. For example, Millie sees Guy as a low level and she calls him a noob. She doesn't overemphasize the word or try to shove it in the audience's face. It's just a casual part of her dialect because she's an avid gamer. To sum this up, it isn't like Jimmy Kimmel wrote the script. Nothing is shoved down your throat in terms of video game humor or references. This is just one of the few video game movies that gamers can watch and enjoy as an accurate representation of their culture. Gamers come from all sorts of background, gender, race, ethnicity, and age in the modern world. Free Guy does a great job representing this and does callbacks to all sorts of video games from different decades and of varying mainstream relevance. This movie was made for people who play video games, not at the expense of them for once. The movie really feels like a love letter written to gamers, mirroring what Keys tells Millie about why he made Guy. Whoa! Cool! Maybe my personal favorite thing about Free Guy is the way that it tells its story. I've already gushed about the aesthetic side of the movie and how it's just fun to watch, but Free Guy is also smartly made with a lot of unexpected twists and storytelling methods. By just reading the title and having a basic idea of the kinds of movies that inspire Free Guy, the goal of the movie seems to literally be to free Guy from the video game. For example, The Matrix has Neo escape the simulation. The Lego Movie has Emmett exit the Lego world into the real world, and The Truman Show has Truman escape the TV set world. And there are many more examples of movies involving a simulation where the goal is to escape into the real world. Free Guy goes in a different direction. The end goal for Free Guy is not to become real, and the movie recognizes that that would be ridiculous. Free Guy literally tells Millie it's weird for her to have a relationship with him since he's just lines of code. Instead, the end goal for Guy is to have him be able to be free to exist in the world that he was made to live in, life itself. And beyond this, the end goal for Millie is to recognize what Guy is, a love letter to her from the very start. She only recognizes this by freeing Guy from herself, not by clinging on to him as the perfect ideal, but seeing him as a representation of Key's love for her. This movie is more than the skeptical layers of reality kind of movie that inspires it. It expands the genre to become more and a more complex, believable, cave allegory-esque story, but more on that later. Free Guy is very much an action movie, but it aspires to be and succeeds at being much more. From ads and trailers, the movie sells itself as a cheesy action comedy, but ends up being more of a story-driven, plot twist, dramatic love story with action and comedy elements to drive those aspects of its plot. Yes, the action in this movie is crazy and ridiculous, but that's the point. Free Guy is parodying, playing off of, and being inspired by video games and action movies. The action is so exaggerated to sell the ultimate meaningless of Free City as a world. It also works towards making the movie funnier, as it's made very clear that the action is not meant to be taken super seriously. The slapstick way that Free Guy is tossed around, beaten up, shot at, hit by cars, hit by trains, it works to show the kind of world he lives in and how he doesn't belong there even when he thinks he does. By showing these ridiculous, over-the-top action shots, Free Guy's director is subtly showing us that Guy is made for more, and represents more than just a video game NPC, even before Guy, Millie, or Keys realize it. Free Guy plays off the tropes of mindless violence in games and movies to further drive its plot and support its themes, not just get a laugh or a stunned expression from audiences. But the movie still remains fun to watch and hysterical at times regardless. By incorporating these action tropes from what inspires the film, Free Guy becomes much more complicated and subversive than it may present itself to be. I've discussed this a bit already in my romance section, but Free Guy's ending is beautiful, unexpected, and perfectly executed. As said previously in this part of the video, Free Guy becomes more as a story than the action comedy it's advertised as. It becomes a beautiful love story. The ending of Free Guy where Keys and Millie kiss is perfectly foreshadowed enough so as to not come out of left field, but not be too obvious. The movie drops many hints and clues throughout to point to this revelation, such as Guy and Millie liking the same song, the same ice cream, and having an inexplicable romance, despite the fact that one of them's real, and one of them's a video game character. But this ending literally almost made me cry, and I'm not joking, it made me that happy. It's just so sweet, and it makes so much sense for these characters. Keys is clearly awkward, but his secret love for Millie is displayed in everything he does. Millie is also totally just unaware all the time throughout the whole movie of his advances and his feelings for her. They don't even share dialogue at the end. She just chases him out into the street, they share a knowing glance, and they embrace in a kiss. It's just so pure and heartwarming and adorable! I could gush about it for hours. You can probably tell by the tone of my voice how excited this makes me, but I won't. I'll spare you. You get the point. The ending of Keys and Millie's relationship story is just beautiful, it's unexpected, and it's heartwarming. All in all, Free Guy geniusly and expertly executes its subversive elements, making it more than a brain-dead action comedy. Free Guy explores so many different themes. It first criticizes what it means to be a hero. Being a hero isn't just doing what you want and looking awesome like the sunglasses people of Free City. It means being Guy, making a difference in the way that you can for a good cause. Guy becomes a good guy, or as he says, a great guy, not for fame, but rooted in his love for Millie. Free Guy also explores the theme of there being more to life. Before Millie, Guy thinks he's got everything he wants. He thinks he lives in paradise, and Buddy even criticizes him for wanting to be with Millie because she's just a quote-unquote fantasy. In fact, every time Guy expresses wanting more out of life, he gets criticized by his other friends and the other NPCs. Only by seeking out this so-called fantasy on his own is he able to break the mold and find purpose in his life. The movie is also full of the theme of truth versus ignorance. Guy originally thinks that he wants to pursue Millie and discover more about her himself, but when he finds out the truth about his reality, he's terrified and he's really angry at her and his own existence. But because of his love for Millie, he's able to get past that. He's able to break through his initial despair and selflessly seek to save the ones he loves and help Millie at all costs. Free Guy also explores the theme of the power of storytelling and the beautiful thing that is man's ability to create. Keys could have just said, "Hey Millie, guess what? I like you." But he doesn't. The movie tells their love story through Keys creating Guy for her. As Keys says at the beginning of the movie, talking about coding, his passion, he says, "It's not just zeros and ones, it's hidden messages. I like to think of myself actually not as a code writer, but as an author." By displaying his love through heartfelt creation and storytelling in the form of Guy's code, Keys makes his love for Millie revealed as all that more genuine and true. Another theme that Free Guy wrestles with is the power of love. Because of his love for Millie, Guy is able to become what he was made to be and break out of his restricted code. Just because of his love, he's able to inspire all of Free City to want to live for more than day-to-day life. And because of Keys' real love for Millie, he's able to help her create a revolutionary video game that changes how people view video games as a whole. Another more minor theme of Free Guy is the value of relationships and the pointlessness of pursuing materialism. Millie and Antoine are the two forces that diametrically oppose these ideals. Millie is fulfilled because she learns that she doesn't really need money, she just needs keys in her original game that she can use to revolutionize the industry. Antoine thinks that all that matters is numbers. He says something like that in the movie, I don't remember what it is. But his life falls apart and he quickly stops being successful when Free City 2 doesn't work out at the end of the movie. Perhaps the main theme of Free Guy is the distinction between fantasy and reality, and where the two often meet. Already incorporated into the other themes in this movie, the theme of fantasy is all over the place in Free Guy, and displayed by the repeatedly used, but incredibly catchy, Mariah Carey song. The theme of fantasy applies to nearly every main character. Antoine buys into the fantasy that money will give him everything he wants. Mauser buys into the fantasy that Free City and playing God can fulfill him. Buddy buys into the fantasy that his simplified reality is all that he needs to be content. Keys and Millie originally think that having their game have a high budget by being given to a big corporate publisher, I can't even talk, will fulfill them, but they quickly learn that it doesn't. Millie is originally so set that suing Antoine will fulfill her fantasy, but she learns she would rather have Keys and fulfillment through just making a good game. Keys follows much the same story as Millie, but also learns that he can be happier if Millie knows he loves her. Guy originally thinks his life is perfect, but because of his love and willingness to be different, he learns that he can be more than just a background character. Life doesn't have to be something that just happens to him, or to any of us. But also, our fantasies can become realities too. There are two kinds of fantasy portrayed in Free Guy. We have to escape the fantasy that life is just what we can see, touch, taste, and hear, and smell also, and embrace what seems like a fantasy, that there's more that gives life meaning, like love, relationships, and good stories. By executing so many complex themes to near perfection, Free Guy becomes much deeper than it may seem on the surface, proving to be very thoughtful. I told you, you critics, I was right! Okay. I recognize this is the hardest part of the video to get anyone to take seriously. I'm going to try. I think I have a lot here. Just hear me out. I think Free Guy is a very philosophical and spiritual movie, and there's a lot of things to back it up. If you just hear me out, just for a second, just be like, okay, I'm gonna listen to him, and then you can say if I'm stupid later. Okay, basically, Free Guy, from what I can tell, seems to very much so follow the structure of Plato's cave allegory. If you know what that is, awesome. If you don't, or you need a reminder, allow me to tell you, I've taken philosophy and theology classes, baby. I've written like 6 papers about this against my will for the most part. So unfortunately, I feel like I know a lot about it, which may be useless knowledge unless I'm making a video essay about Free Guy. So maybe it did work out for me. Anyway, Plato claims that our reality may just be a casting of shadows on a cave wall that we watch while chained up. A fire creates these shadows as puppeteers cast them before our eyes by holding up images in front of the light of the fire. The fire represents an imitation of the sun, which represents the perfect good that we can't see because we're trapped in this cave. The prisoners, us, remain content to stare at this wall unless somebody rips them away from it and out of their chains. They can't do it themselves. But once they see the true sun outside the cave, it blinds them at first. They can only see it through reflections or by looking at the things that the sun lights up around them. Eventually, they go back and try to convince other prisoners of the truth if they're willing to accept it, but the other prisoners shun them. They think they're stupid. You think there's a big sun out there? No, all there is these shadows, you dingus. And many prisoners who escape even return to the cave because it's more comfortable in there, that the light doesn't hurt their eyes, yada yada yada. Free Guy sort of matches this allegory on 2 levels like I mentioned before. For one, Free Guy and the NPCs think that Free City is all that there is to their life. But it's actually just a shadow cast by Antoine and the Free City developers, and it serves as an imitation of the game that they were made for, life itself. Guy discovers this by Millie forcing him out of his chains, and at first he's blinded and angry. Eventually, he reconciles and tries to tell the NPCs the truth, but many reject him. Guy, however, wants to experience his destined reality, and so even though he's trying to be forced back into this cave and his realization, has been shunned, he's willing to fight for it, baby, and convince other people of the truth, and he does. Guy eventually manages to rip these other NPCs out of their chains and see the truth that Antoine has trapped their AIs in this lesser cave. Another way that Free Guy adapts the cave allegory is through Millie and Key's love story. Millie plays the role of the prisoner, thinking that Guy is all there is in terms of her romantic affection, but Guy is just a reflection, a shadow cast by life itself through Free City as a stand-in for Key's feelings for Millie. Millie recognizes that there's more to Guy, and eventually she learns the truth. This is a bit more complicated and maybe a stretch, but I just found it really interesting how well all these pieces fit together and kind of deepened some of the lore and depth to Free Guy. For the already skeptical viewer, this next part is going to be the most of a stretch, and this is me kind of reaching. This isn't the stuff I really believe most about Free Guy. I've covered most of that. This is just the extra goodies that I think is interesting to explore from the perspective of what I've spent a lot of time studying and researching. I don't think this movie's supposed to be spiritual. I don't think it's supposed to be Christian. However, it seems to follow a lot of that structure and narrative and have a lot of themes that fit together well with the modern Christian narrative. So, hear me out. Okay, so Keys, for one. I think he's our stand-in for God in this story, and Millie represents humanity. In the Bible, God gave humanity a human version of himself, Jesus as a representation of his love. Keys, Wright's Guy, a representation of his love for Millie, representing us. So yes, Ryan Reynolds' Guy is a Christ figure in this extent. And I can say something even sillier. Dude is therefore the Antichrist. He's the anti-Guy. He's all the substance of Guy without any of the actual, meaning behind it. He's just the image, but made to be corrupt and look cooler and awesome so he can, take people away from the truth. Kind of. You can tell I'm reaching. I just thought this was interesting. Therefore, Antoine Taika Waititi represents Satan. Life itself represents the Garden of Eden and heaven, and Free City represents the sinful world that we live in, as the Christian tradition claims. Again, I'm not trying to say Free Guy does this intentionally, or that you have to believe it does. It's just interesting. I mean, to see a movie that critics call so shallow have a lot of these overlaps with such complicated imagery. It's obviously not shallow. If you can claim that dude is the Antichrist, that's pretty profound. So, what are my final thoughts? Well, Free Guy has something for everybody. It's got comedy, it's got action, it's got romance, it's got video games, powerful themes, philosophy, spiritual themes. What? It's a masterpiece. Not because it's perfect at being one kind of movie, but it does an incredible job at being so many different genres, blending them all together with little spices of Ryan Reynolds and all these other amazing actors to make it that much better. It's so fun to watch, and there's so much depth to it if you're willing to look at it. Free Guy shows us that about movies, that movies, even that seem like they're just a basic action comedy, can have a lot more depth and show us more about the human condition if we're really willing to take the time and think about it. So, I hope this video made you think. I hope it showed you some things you didn't see if you first watched it, or maybe made you want to watch it now. So, thank you again for watching. It may not be your favorite movie, it's definitely one of mine. Now, I just hope you can appreciate it a little more. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Before I go, some extra special thanks. First of all, to everyone who watches this, or even gave me some points to make in this video, and anyone who ever encouraged me to make this. Also thanks to anyone who's listened to me gush about this movie before, and to Sam Allen for making the thumbnail. It really turned out awesome. Also thanks to H-Pizzle for letting me use his remix of Fantasy in the 8-bit style that you heard in this video.